All right, thank you so much. So today's conference will have information about certain products and certain statements which will be forward-looking. And essentially, this is a comment from our legal team just to basically, put things in right perspective. The agenda for today's web conference is essentially we will talk about this whole concept of what is cognitive, what does it do, how does it really relate to collaboration in that sense. I'm pretty sure a lot of you heard about cognitive and heard about things around cognitive aspects, machine learning, artificial intelligence. You've heard about these topics and you've heard about these phrases being used, right? And we're talking about how it can apply to collaboration. How can cognitive solutions be done from an overall perspective, from an IBM Verse or from a connections perspective, and we'll talk about those capabilities from an email as well as from a collaboration standpoint, and how can we enable conversations, and we'll talk about those aspects of it. And of course, we will show you some feature and functionalities of those specific products as to how they basically can relate to it from a cognitive standpoint, right? So just jumping on to the vision aspect of it and talking about it, right? Essentially, right, if you look at today's businesses, right, most businesses are being driven by digital, right, in the sense that you are basically having a digital emphasis to businesses, right, whether it is brick and mortar, whether it is, obviously, if you had an electronic or you were dealing with things electronically, your business any which ways was digital in the sense that you were doing e-commerce or you were selling products or you were basically, generating invoices. It was there, right? It was always digital in nature, right? But effectively, with the advent of GST, with the advent of all the new capabilities, right, essentially most businesses have to become digital or have to adopt electronic transactions, have to adopt electronic methods of working, right? Essentially, that's the reason why, digital is disrupting the, industries and professions, right? Some of the statistics you can see from the Capgemini study, which basically points to 69% of the businesses lack ability, 72% are vulnerable, and 80% businesses have challenges, right? So while your business is growing, while your business wants to become digital or wants to basically move into the next profession or the next method of working, effectively what gets hampered is the ability for it to basically be able to support those transactions or to basically move to that particular perspective, right? So from that particular standpoint, right, let's basically talk about, right, some of the other aspects of it, right? The other aspects is that while digital is good from a business perspective, right, what we will basically encounter is also the fact, right, that $37 billion, right, is being lost in collaboration or in unproductive meetings, right? A lot of that, business which typically is being done lacks execution because of the fact that there are no good ideas or there's a lack of innovation, right? And of course, from a perspective which was talked about was that there are too many tools, right, which are being used today, which basically make context switching or which make interruptions, right, in your day-to-day life, right? So these are basically aspects of digital transformation, right, which is costing you for organizations, right? People are investing into technology which basically should make life easier for them, or businesses are investing in technology, but unfortunately it's not really happening in that scheme of things, right? The technology, while it's an enabler to help you, get more business, unfortunately it's kind of creating roadblocks, which is what, technology shouldn't be doing in the first place, right? So from that particular standpoint, right, we kind of focused on, these 5 guiding principles, right? We basically said that how can we make our work, right, or our whole ability to do transformation, right, from an end-to-end perspective, how can we increase the velocity of innovation, because it's innovative enterprises which survive, right? It's basically the era of innovation. How can we give you tools which will help you to do problem solving quickly. And in that regard, right, we obviously need to start making every conversation count, right? There is no longer, a requirement, right? I think so. The same way which happened to letters, right? Email killed, for example, letters, right? Or the whole concept of letter writing, right? Then social came in, which kind of has killed email, right? And then of course now with conversational apps being there, right? Whether you have, in the consumer world you use technology like Hike, Messenger, or you use WhatsApp and other aspects of it, right? Your SMS or the whole concept of communication is actually going away, right? So how do we make conversations count? When you talk about conversations, you're not talking about, WhatsApp kind of conversations. You're talking about business conversations. We're saying how can we combine those conversations and create and combine expertise and insight? How can we deliver better outcomes, right? How can we basically create a focus to reduce the noise? How can we basically make your email or your email interface a less clutter-free interface, less cumbersome interface in that sense? And at the same time, how can we empower the citizen developer, right? We are saying that basically the days of you writing code are gone, right? People want to today pick and choose tools and collaborate with them, right? So that's where a citizen developer concept is actually evolving, right? Where you actually get these plugins, wizards, widgets, right, which you can integrate or basically bring in and kind of do the level of integration from an end-to-end perspective, right? And that's where technology can actually help you, right? So what I'm doing in the first few slides is really setting the context of what we're basically going to talk about, when we talk about those 5 pillars, right? So when we talk about 5 pillars, right, we are saying technology or digital transformation can only be achieved today. To accelerate that process, you would need to basically focus on conversation. You will obviously need to make it cognitive, which is basically it should be self-learning. It should be healing in that sense. It should be able to understand, what you're saying and help you. It should be intuitive. At the same time, it should be having a ability to be able to manage content of various kinds, whether it's audio, video, and others. And of course, it should be available on cloud, either hybrid or public or, on premises. And there should be a choice which you should be able to exercise in the sense that you could decide where you want to position that service. So from that standpoint, right, effectively, right, if you kind of move into the ability, right, there's a lot of, as I said, right, a lot of focus around cognitive. What is, the obvious question which everybody would have is what is cognitive, right? What is this word called cognitive, right? First of all, right, cognitive is talking about the ability for organizations, right, or for systems, right? For example, we'll be talking about systems here. We're not talking about human beings here. We're talking about cognitive systems, right? When we say cognitive systems, we're saying it should be able to understand like humans do, right? How do you understand? How do you do, right? When you were in school, right? When you were in school, somebody taught you about a lesson or made you understand a concept, right? Now, when you understood that concept, when you kind of got the concept that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, that's how you understood, right? In the sense that you used your mental capabilities, right? How did you do that? In certain cases, it was intuitive. In certain cases, it was through repeated actions, right? So, for example, language, right? We were able to learn language because we were able to repeat it and keep doing it over and over again. Like maths, we practiced and practiced. So we learned and we understood how that particular formula worked or that particular derivation worked and so on and so forth, right? We were able to use reason, and cognitive systems should be able to use reason to extract ideas, right? So it should have reasoning capability, right? It should have those what-if analysis, right? It should be able to reason and say, oh, if I basically do that, then this will harm me. For example, if I am standing at the edge of a building, or if I'm standing at the edge of a cliff, if I know that if I take a step forward, I will fall and I will hurt myself, right? So that's reasoning, right, in that sense, right? I can learn from past results, so I can certainly make improvements, or I can look at how can I learn from my past results, right? And that's where cognitive power comes into picture, right? And of course, I can interact in a natural way. When I say cognitive systems interaction, it should be through normal language which you and I speak. It shouldn't be as complicated. If I have to write 500 lines of code to basically get a result, then that's not a good level of interaction which I'm having with a cognitive system, right? So cognitive systems or cognitive capabilities, right, should have these four key pillars, right? It should have understanding, it should have reasoning, it should be able to learn, and it should be able to interact, right? Broadly speaking, all cognitive systems, right, and in IBM we codename all our cognitive systems under one umbrella, which is called IBM Watson. Watson is not a product, it's not it's a capability which we're talking about. So Watson gives you the capability part of it, and it will give you a set of services, right? Our cognitive capabilities or cognitive services are being delivered, and each of those are under three umbrellas, right? They're called foundational. So foundational cognitive skills are the normal ones. Then you have organizational or knowledge organizational skills, where you can look at things like rank, retrieve, and all those kind of capabilities where you're talking about, generating knowledge. And then it's basically using reasoning, right? Where you're reasoning and saying that, okay, fine, if I kind of look at the, for example, in automobile sector, for example, right? If I take an example of that, right? Let's say if I look at, preventive maintenance, data of a particular component, I can use reasoning, and I can derive from there saying that this component will fail in the next 6 months or 8 months because there is a manufacturing defect right at the start, right? Looking at the empirical data which is available with me, right? So I'm using the data to basically do the reasoning. Knowledge organization is more of rank and retrieve, and then foundational cognitive skills basically, kind of work on the concept of language in that sense, right? And each of these skills, right, have these three things which they use to solve a particular problem, right? They use a concept of inductive, which is like picking the right answer by certain degree of certainty and use that repetitive capability. It uses deductive, which is to compute an answer. And the third one is additive, which is basically reasoning, right? So it kind of uses these three machine learning capabilities, right, to solve a particular problem. And that's what cognitive services are, right? And IBM is basically building cognitive services into every little capability which we actually have today in the market. And that's why I said, right, that's a code name which is called Watson, where it understands, reasons, learns, and interacts in a natural way, right, from an overall perspective. Now, having said that, right, how does it apply to collaboration business, right? How does it apply to collaboration? How does it really apply to capabilities which we actually have in the market, right? From that standpoint, right, the collaboration part of it, right, we basically classified cognitive capabilities, or we've said that from an overall perspective, right, we'd like to classify our solution into three waves, right? We would like to classify one wave which is called productivity, the second wave which is called engagement, and the third wave which is called intelligence. But similar to the way cognitive looks at the information, right, where it looks at and says, okay, I will basically use foundational skills, I will use knowledge skills, and then I will use reasoning skills, right? So that's how we've actually mapped this capability to our three waves from an overall perspective. And let's talk about each of these waves in a little bit more detail. So let's talk about the first wave. And one little aspect which before we move on to the waves, right, and move on to the capabilities there, right, I talked about the independence and choice, right, and this is the other two pillars which we were talking about, right? So we said, the solution should have cloud capability. When we say cloud capability, it means that it could be on-prem, it could be hybrid, it could be, any kind of capability which is there on the public cloud. So we're not necessarily saying that, it has to be a public cloud. It can be a hybrid, it can be a private, or it can be a non-premises capability, right? So all these solutions which we will subsequently talk about will have that same flavor. They're available in private, public, and hybrid options, as well as they're available on on-premises options. So wave 1, productivity, wave 2, engagement, and wave 3, intelligence, right? Let's talk about the first wave, right? So let's talk about email, right? And email is a topic, or is a capability, right, which is near and dear to a lot of people, right? What did IBM do to email, right? We have been there in this market for the last 25 plus years, right? But what IBM has done is we've revamped the email, right? So in 2 years back, right, we kind of revamped email. We kind of said, we would like to basically transform email and make it more intelligent, make it more cognitive, make it more understanding, right? And that's where we made mail, which is IBM Verse, right? So IBM Verse is powered by analytics. It's basically a mail which understands you, in the sense that it understands who you are, what do you do, where do you live inside the organization, where are your colleagues. It helps you to cut clutter. It basically has a single-click functionality, which allows you to live in your mailbox with a single click. And of course, it makes mail more social, right? So it allows mail to become more social, more open in that context. So from that standpoint, right, that's what IBM Verse allows you to do from an overall perspective. Now let's try to focus on some of the capabilities of IBM Verse, right? And let's focus on those 5 key areas, right, why IBM Verse stands out from competition, right? Why does it really stand out from competition from an overall perspective, right? Number one thing, right, IBM Verse's interface is a a cloud-first delivered, browser-first delivered architecture, right? So Verse is a browser-based interface which does not require you to install anything, configure anything. It has offline capability on a browser. It allows you to basically work with all kinds of browsers which are there in the market today. And it's a refreshingly new interface which has been designed from ground up using a concept in IBM called design thinking, right? So we have used design thinking as a concept to basically develop this capability, which is called IBM Verse, which has all these beautiful functionalities and beautiful capabilities from an overall perspective. We just focus on some of the important functionalities. First of all, it's an important to me bar, right? So when you have an important to me bar, what this important to me bar signifies is you can filter your mails by those people, right? Important to me bar could be people who I designate as important to me, or the system finds out based on my interactions with them, right, that these are the people who are important to me, right? So I can basically have both kinds of people, right? Somebody who is important to me and somebody who is basically, something which the system has derived based on recent interactions, right? So that's the difference between important to me bar. What's the advantage of this? It allows me to focus my conversation or my communication or my collaboration with one specific individual at a time, right? How many times have you had the situation that you have been working your mail, suddenly, a new mail comes up and you suddenly lose track of what you were working with, right? This is a classical problem which can be avoided when you actually have, an important to me bar, or you basically have a concept where you can basically click on a person and you can actually look at all the communication from that particular person, right? So this one gives you a beautiful capability from that particular standpoint. As I said, the system has analytics, so it can derive a list of people which it feels that you should be interacting, or these could be people who are important to you. Not because I said so, but because the system said so, right? Based on the interaction which you're having with them. So, this list could be dynamic and this could be changing over a period of time, right, based on auto suggestions. Then, while you're looking at your mail and you're looking at a clutter-free interface, you also have a calendar running side by side, right? And you have a progressive calendar bar which kind of moves as the day progresses. So if you're at 2 o'clock today, it will tell you your appointments which are coming up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, right? So you can basically focus your communication based on that, right? It gives you that flexibility, right? That's another plus point which is there. And plus it gives you one-click access to meetings, to, enter into conversation, set up out of office, and then you have all those capabilities available. Search. We really took a very, very strong capability in IBM Verse to add beautiful search capabilities. You can filter by attachments, you can filter by date, you can filter by time, you can look at, by, various kinds of options like, who has sent you copies to of the mail, and so on and so forth. There are various ways of how you can actually do that, and all using point-and-click functionality. Again, you don't really need to write a formula. You don't need to really remember any syntax. You can do it just by typing it in plain text, right? So that is another big plus point. And once you search for one particular aspect of it, like for example, you know that, let's say for example, you're searching for a mail, right? You're saying, oh, I would remember that somebody sent me a mail 2 months ago. So you search for 2 months ago. Now you say, oh, after I've searched for 2 months, maybe that mail was from a particular person. You can filter it down by a particular person. Oh, it was related to some topic which I had, right? And then it probably had an attachment or didn't have an attachment, right? Now, if you want to do a search like this in your normal email system, you'll have to write a formula. You'll have to get into code and all that kind of things, right? In IBM Verse, you don't need to do all that, right? You can just do a point and click, and that's where the faceted search capability really comes into picture, right, from an overall perspective. So, search, and then of course, the ability to be able to mark actions, right? So basically to be able to define actions on your mail, to be able to basically define capabilities and say, oh, this needs action, this does not need action, right? Normally what happens, you set a reminder, you put a sticky note, you kind of have sticky, those sticky notes on your desk and other kinds of things. But then you need a system to manage those sticky notes and other aspects of it, right? What you can do with this needs action and waiting for action is quickly jot down or pen down, right, a quick reminder why that particular thing was marked as a need action or somebody else had to action, then you basically say waiting for action, right? And then you can actually proceed with that particular note, right? So it can basically give you that particular perspective from an overall standpoint, right? So that is, in a nutshell, right, a very quick overview of IBM Verse, right, and gives you that end-to-end functionality. And this basically is going to now move into the cognitive features, right, and talk about some of the cognitive capabilities of the platform from an overall perspective. One of the things which we are adding in Verse is something we call as a Verse tone analyzer, or it's called IBM Watson tone analyzer actually. And one of the capabilities of the tone analyzer will be that it will basically help you to analyze the tone of your messages. So it will be able to do a linguistic analysis of your mail and tell you that the mail which you are writing to your boss or to your employee or to your superior or to your junior is, sounding negative or does not have the right, keywords, right? Or you can avoid a certain keyword to basically make that mail sound positive instead of sounding pessimistic or negative, right? So it can basically do analysis of the mail on the emotion of the mail. It can look at the social tone of the mail, whether it's open or whether it's closed. And of course, it can also look at the writing, style of yours, right? Whether it is analytical or whether it is confident or whether it is, too in detail and so on and so forth, right? You can get into that detail. How does it do it? It does have an API which learns over a period of time and that API has been perfected, and it gives you that flexibility from an overall perspective, right? So will it give you suggestions of how to improve your content? Answer is yes, it does have that capability also. So we just given you a small poll, so you can actually give your answer to that particular poll. Let's move on, and let's move on to the next aspect of the cognitive part. Calendar, one more area where cognitive will be added as part of our capability. Let's say there are multiple meetings which you have, right? How do you understand, or if you have the multiple meetings at the same time, right? How do you decide, which meeting to attend, right? You normally go by the importance of that meeting. You kind of basically, look at who's attending that meeting, right? The system will make that distinction for you. So rather than you doing that analysis, let the cognitive capability do the analysis, right? Let it do the analysis and tell you, okay, fine, Mr. So-and-so, you have a meeting with your superior that is going to be attending that meeting, and there are going to be people flying in from somewhere else who are going to attend that meeting. So automatically that meeting is deemed important as against some of the other meetings which are regular in nature or review oriented and stuff like that. So it gives you that flexibility from an overall perspective. Okay. What are the other capabilities, right? Your meeting is about to end in the sense that you have a repeating meeting and you're about to end. It will give you an automatic alert saying, this is the last instance of the meeting. Would you like to basically extend that meeting by another 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever that number would be? Gives you that flexibility. Somebody sends you a mail saying, great, I saw your presentation on such and such date. Can you send me a copy of that? The system can automatically read that mail and look at the common verbs, right? Like send me a copy of the presentation, right? Which is a budget presentation or something like that, or a launch presentation. And it finds that in your files or inside your web-based file sharing capability, right? You have a file called presentation or launch presentation for this particular product, right? So the system prompts you and says, should I send a copy of this presentation to this particular user because he's asking for a launch presentation? And that's where, right, you get that flexibility, right? So again, right, it gives you that flexibility to be able to read and recommend, right, and ignore the clutter. Similarly, you have an action center available. In the action center, right, the system allows you to basically combine a lot of events together, right, and give you a consolidated list of events, right? So, for example, think about it like your personal secretary, right? In the morning when you attend your office, right, your secretary sometimes prints out a copy of your agenda, your itinerary, your this thing, and gives it to you, right? Or gives you a briefing note which says, oh, today you're going to meet up with this particular person, you have lunch with that particular person. Watson, with the cognitive capability and collaboration and creating this concept called command center, right, it will be able to tell you, right, okay, overnight, these were the 100, out of the 100, these were the 10 important people who sent you messages. You have these many approvals pending. You have a meeting which is starting in the next 4 minutes or 5 minutes, and this is how you can get to that particular meeting. And then, of course, these are the other updates which have actually happened in your network, right? So it does give you that capability from an overall perspective, right? The normal kind of things are there, right? Will these capabilities only work with English language? Will they work with other languages? Answer is yes, they have been tuned to other languages. Of course, when you come to Indian languages, yes, there is some work to be done on those aspects of it, but yes, we have done work with some of the other languages, right? So the API is kind of the capability which we have is kind of language neutral in that sense. It kind of looks at not just English language, but also looks at some of the other languages in that sense from a capability standpoint. Okay, So let's look at some of the other capabilities, and look at some of the other things about IBM Verse. As I said, right, IBM Verse is a larger part of an offering which we have around email and collaboration. And one of the things in that capability is the ability to have choice, right? So we have allowed support for Outlook. We have allowed support for notes. Of course, we give you notes and domino license along with that. You get access to iNotes, which is a browser-based interface. You can use the mobile app of IBM Verse, which is again on the Android and iOS platform. So again, right, you get a lot of capability from an overall perspective, right, from an end-to-end standpoint when you talk about IBM Verse, right. And, it gives you an end-to-end functionality of email, and of course, it gives you collaboration and cognitive features, right. So let's move on to the second part of our, the second wave, which we spoke about, which was around, community and engagement, and more so about engagement actually. When you talk about engagement, right, and you talk about engaging with people, right, why would you want to basically bring people, right? You will want to engage into a conversation with people, or you want to engage with people because by engagement, right, you can build knowledge, right? You can capture knowledge, you can disseminate knowledge, right? You can empower people. You can empower them to work from anywhere, anyhow, even offline, right? When you engage with people, you filter out the noise and you illuminate ideas, right? There are people who can dream of ideas, but to implement ideas, you need a team, right? Nobody can actually implement an idea of its own, right? Unless it's a very small idea, right? You can extend technology, and that's where basically engagement really thrives upon, right? So we've launched IBM Connection 6. IBM Connection 6 is a social enterprise delivery platform. It basically allows you to do social collaboration within the boundary of the enterprise, right? And it basically gives you the capability to have integrated functionalities of, when you talk about, right, any kind of social capability, right, the obvious thing which will come to your notice or to your mind will be Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and others, right? But when you talk about Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, right, most of these technologies are open. You can't have business conversations on them, or even if they provide some kind of tool or some kind of add-on, they are woefully short in terms of feature and functionality, right? We focus on people. We focus on the power of community. We like to get things done together, and that's what IBM Connections is for, right? So it gives you all the capabilities from a standpoint of a community, from a concept of a person, and we've kept the person at the center of the universe because we believe that the person or the people inside your organization are the most powerful computers which run your organization, right? So how do we get people organized? We can get organized people into a concept of community, and that's what basically, IBM Connection 6 basically talks about, right? It basically gives you that capability where it allows you to have engagement with these employees, right? What is also IBM Connections has, in addition to the capability of Connections as a social platform, right? What we've also now allowed to add is a capability within Connections called Touchpoint, right? We understood the need that most organizations will want something to onboard their employees with, right? When you're talking about employee engagement, you need an onboarding tool, right? So Connection Touchpoint fills that gap. It gives you that gap. It gives you that capability which will allow you to onboard employees using the concept of Connection Touchpoint. Also, we realized that using the power of cognitive, right, we would like to give you a customized homepage, right, to start your day with, right, which is tailored and tapered to your needs, which understands you as a user, which focuses on what is important, which summarizes the content, which assists the user, and which also uses your own intelligence. It uses intelligence to basically find out and discover new aspects and new insights, right, and give you that in the front page itself, right? And that's where fundamentally, right, Connections Orient Me is, right? So Orient Me is a new capability, state-of-the-art, capability which none of the social enterprise systems today have actually today in the market. And Connection 6 has that capability. So that's another big plus point. In addition to that, right, what IBM has also done is that most of us struggle when it comes to connections, right? When you basically, when you talk about, how do we basically take care of, intranet, how do we take care of a single destination, right, where all the corporate communication, employee engagement and collaboration can basically decide, right? To alleviate that concern, right, IBM has launched a new product which is an add-on to IBM Connections called IBM Connections Engagement Center. Right, the Connections Engagement Center allows you to create a kind of a landing page along with a landing site, which will allow you to have departmental as well as non-departmental and external-facing interfaces, more like an intranet/extranet for your connections or your social needs within the organization. And it also has some limited amount of enterprise integration to allow that integration to actually happen. Right? So that is basically a quick, discussion from an overall standpoint, right, about the cognitive capabilities of IBM Connections as well as our engagement center. Right. Moving forward, right, how do we basically take Connections to the next level, right? We are basically working to make Connections, right, into a microservice architecture. Right? We are saying that everything in Connections should be driven through an API. Right? Everything in Connections should be driven through a concept of incremental deployment. Right? Where you don't have to worry about how to deploy the product. Right? You just get a service pack from IBM, you just install it and you get it up and running. You don't have to worry about the underlying OS. You don't have to worry about what the limited what database you are running. So it basically gives you a package component, which is a concept called Docker, which allows you to have this capability, right? So we will be using these concepts to make Connections more scalable, make it more simplified, make the interface more modern and customizable to whatever level you want, accessible as well as it is incremental, right? So from that overall perspective, it does give you that overall functionality from an end-to-end standpoint. In addition to that, right, since we talked about the ability to be able to have content from various systems, right, we can also look at IBM Box, and Box is an enterprise content management capability on the cloud which is available, and IBM has of course, our solution integrates with Box in a very, very nice way. Box incidentally also has a workflow capability which is called Box Relay. And this allows you to have workflow on the cloud along with document management. Right? So it's a combination of enterprise content management along with document management, which is what Box actually offers you, right, on the cloud. Now, obviously, you might be wondering that, okay, fine, this is good from a communication standpoint, this is good from an engagement or productivity and engagement standpoint, right? How will it be used in customer scenarios, right? And have customers deployed these capabilities and have they got benefit out of those, right? And that's where, right, we can talk about, right? So there's a nice video available and the URL is there. This is from Mr. Ritesh Verma, who is the head of IT for IoT Infrastructure and Services. IoT Infrastructure and Services is essentially an APC company. They do projects, in the area of, construction and engineering. And one of the things which they used Connections for was the ability for the information to be available to all the employees in a single place, right? A lot of that information was scattered, best practices, SOPs, those kind of things which were basically available. And then, of course, they can use some of these technologies around cognitive to make informed choices, right? And that's where, effectively, organizations around the world have been able to use connections and some of the other capabilities which I spoke about and derive value from there, right? Also, one of the other customers, right, which is about, of course, from a productivity standpoint, I've spoken about IBM Verse, and he was really impressed with the search and the analytics capabilities, right, and especially around the task management aspects of IBM Verse to derive value, right. So IBM is a business of deriving value for customers and giving them the best value for money from an overall perspective. So from that standpoint, right, I think that we should move on to the last wave, which is essentially going to be the wave which we talk about is intelligence, right. So we should talk about, how can we enable conversations, right? And this is where IBM Watson Workspace will come into picture, right? So what is IBM Watson Workspace, right? We realized in IBM, right, that a lot of customers, right, is a really, nice way of conversing, right? People have been conversing using these various chat tools which are there, right? How can we have a conversational tool which will allow you to have business conversations, right, in the language this business understands, right? And of course, it should be powered using cognitive capabilities, right? Because, you can have a tool. How good is a tool? If I create a equivalent of WhatsApp and I say, oh, this is only for business, which is supposed to be meant, I can put a door around it, I can put a back door around it, and so on and so forth. But that's not the end result, right? That's not the overall result which we're trying to achieve, right? We're trying to make a business conversation and make a tool which is meant for business, right? And that's what our Watson Workspace does, right? It is really evolving into a conversational tool. So it has features like an individual or a persistent chat along with group and individual chat. It supports single sign-on. It works with cognitive capabilities, and it also works across devices, right? So Watson Workspace has two components. Basically, one we call as Watson Workspace, which is going to be the product or the solution. And then, of course, we have Watson Work Services, which is kind of a development platform which allows employees or developers or various business partners to build extensions into IBM Watson Workspace. So imagine that you are trying a conversation and you're suddenly having a chat bot, right? So instead of you conversing with a person, you're conversing with a machine, right? So you tell the bot, okay, order status. Now, when you say order status, it could mean that go and pick up the details of this, right? So it will tell you order status for what. So you can say, okay, fine, give me order status for the Western region. So it can tell you that in the Western region, these are my top 10 orders, and this is what, right? So this is a chatbot capability which Watson can basically be built, and you can have it converse with industries as well as you can have it converse with applications. We're just giving an example of a chatbot or an example of IBM Watson Workspace. This is how the Watson Workspace looks like. It gives you the capability. And one of the good things about Watson from a cognitive standpoint is that it has two functionalities. One is called moments, right? So let's imagine that you are having a conversation with 10 of your colleagues, right? And then suddenly you, on a Saturday or a Friday, you have to travel to a location, or you are going out on picnic or whatever that it is, right, on an outing. And then you come back on Monday. Now, obviously, over Saturday and Sunday, and maybe Friday, a lot of discussion has happened, right? How do you summarize that conversation, right? How do you make it into a point where actions have been taken and where moments were there, right? This is where cognitive power comes in, right? So it combines that entire 72 hours of conversation into nuggets which you can consume, whereas you don't have to read through the entire 3 days of conversation. So you can say, oh, this person asked this question, this person answered it, or for that matter, this is what was, these files were shared, and so on and so forth. So it gives you that overall, kind of a summarization using the concept of moments and action identification. This is a beautiful capability. Then in addition to that, the Watson workspace will also highlight to you, things like, for example, right, like for example, if you say in the conversation, I would like, so-and-so person, right, to give this particular customer a call, right? So the customer name was there. The system will automatically go into a customer database, pick up the name of the customer and say, hey, would you like to call this particular customer or do a video conference or a web conference with the customer? Or would you like to go into my CRM application and read the opportunities related to this particular customer? That's the kind of work which, this capability provides you, right? So that's something which Watson Workspace will provide you with. As I said, right, it has integration with a host of tools available which are non-IBM and IBM, right? It has integration points. We've also tied up with business partners which have integration with other applications. So these are like, over, if you count the number, it goes to about 500 integrations, right, which we actually have today available out of the box. You can also integrate this with MS Outlook. So again, you have the integration with not just with IBM Notes and Domino, but with MS Outlook also, right? So you can have that kind of integration from not just our platform, but from some other platform also. Right? And this is how our work is going on. We are trying to basically move areas into workflow, into docs, and of course build a lot of microservices which will allow you to quickly consume these applications in your native application or in your custom application, and you can actually do wonders with that, right? Notwithstanding, right, obviously why IBM, right? We've been there in the industry segment and leader segment for the last 7 years in a row. We've been named industry leaders in the social marketplace. We've been leaders consecutively in the enterprise software space, especially around social software. This is a list of our clients which we have spent. This is not the end-to-end list. This is just a kind of a cursory list of customers. The customers have said great things about our social as well as our legal platform. This is UPS, which has adopted our technology. This is Mears Group, which is again adopted our technology. And of course, the idea is that we can collaborate and we can help you build value. We can basically identify your needs, and you can help us by using our easy button approach of collaborative problem solving. Right? So you can start today. You can call on us, and we can help you set up that easy button which will help you to solve your collaboration needs. So we have a trial running for all these products. You can participate that in the IBM marketplace, and this is just some basic information about how we can actually take care of some of our needs from a overall perspective, right? So you can visit the IBM marketplace. This is my contact details, my Twitter handle, as well as my email address. In case you want to reach out to me, I can certainly take some questions at this particular point of time. We do have some time available at disposal. Somebody said, does Tone Analyzer have capability of a different languages? As I said, right, we are trying to make the Tone Analyzer language neutral. We've already tested this out with a few Indian languages, not Indian languages, but other languages. Work on Indian languages is also happening as we speak. So somebody said, we are basically integrating cognitive capabilities into different platforms, right? We're not creating different products. Let me be very clear, right? When we say cognitive, we are saying cognitive is not one brand, right? It's not like one, we are saying it's a capability which will be embedded, right? So we are not launching multiple products, right? But we are definitely talking about building capabilities, right? What cognitive will stand for collaboration may not stand for automobile industry or for preventive maintenance or in the arena of security or for the arena of, collaboration, right? So that's something which, those are basically going to be the cases which are going to be there, right? I don't fundamentally agree that, by having multiple products, we add confusion. Each product does a specific need what it is supposed to do, right? Somebody asked from a perspective of IBM integration bus, right? So integration bus, the advantages which cognitive or some of the other capabilities would give us is give us the integration with enterprise applications, right? Like, for example, CRM, or for that matter, the HCM applications, logistics, supply chain management, and other aspects of it, right? Somebody said, how do we compare with Google versus this, right? See, first of all, one has to keep in mind, right, that most of my competition only has email as an option, okay? Google only has email, right? They don't offer anything in social. They don't offer anything in cognitive. They don't offer anything in that, right? Most of the Google components which are there are being packaged by, saying whatever is available in the consumer space is packaged for enterprises. IBM is a solution which has been designed for enterprise segments, right? There are a lot of number of differentiators. If you have a specific case in mind, we can have a discussion, and of course we do have comparison and documents, although I would not like to get into an apple-to-apple comparison. But if the need so arises, we can certainly do that. And we've done that, and we've won against Google in umpteen number of cases which we've actually worked on. Any other questions? If somebody asks a question, can I upskill myself to learn development on the Watson platform? Yes, you can. There are a lot of options available. As a matter of fact, IBM has opened a machine learning lab in Bangalore, the first one of its kind anywhere in the world. So, and of course, when the whole concept of artificial intelligence, IBM has tied up with and has created a common body, standards body with IBM, Google, and Microsoft together. So there's a lot of work which can actually happen on that aspect. So Libby said IBM App Connect with IBM Cognitive. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the context of that conversation, so you'll have to be a little bit more specific than that. But any cognitive capability is basically an API call. So any application can call that service and basically utilize it in their necessary. At the end of the result, it does return the result, which can be the application can consume, and you can actually build the logic on top of it, right? So there is that capability available. For example, I can build a logic in my email and say that if the email is negative oriented, don't send that email. So don't allow somebody to be able to click that send button if that conversation is negative oriented. And that's it. So again, I can use cognitive as a service in any application of my choice. All right, I think we are just crossed the top of the hour, which is basically 4:03. Once again, right, thank you for attending the webinar today, and once again, thanks a lot for asking the questions. I hope I was able to answer your questions to the best of my ability. And my email connect is there on the screen in case you wish to reach out to me, or you can follow me on Twitter, and you can post your questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you once again, and this conference will end now. Thank you.